Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good day to all of you, my dear students. If we start from where we left in the previous lecture, lecture number 17, we were talking about the basic concept of email. Called it as the electronic version of a letter or electronic mail in journal. And what was the focus? We targeted the basics alongside some steps of effective email writing. And in addition, we discussed and talked about the manner in which it has to be formatted. If we look at it, if you remember, I talked in detail to consider this as an electronic or a digital personality of yourself, and therefore how you should dress up and moving onwards how you should talk are some of the sections that we try to cover. However, talking about the structure, we talked about the head and then started with subject alongside a discussion regarding our salutation or greeting and the manner it has to be structured. Once you have greeted, what is about to come will be the focus in our today's lecture, and I'm going to take a start from our opening sentence, the manner in which you are going to open up the conversation. What should be the focus when you are about to commence with a discussion, with a talk, with your addressee? The basic focus in case of your opening sentence should be that it should provide a reason for writing. It could be any reason. In case you have been asked a question, so of course in response to that question you are coming up with this email to provide some detail, providing an answer, providing a response, but that is the basic purpose here, which is covered in case of your opening sentence. Moving onwards, you are responding to an ongoing conversation as well. It may not be just a simple question, but it's a situation in which a discussion is continuing regarding a subject matter in which this open dialogue is happening between you and the other person. So of course you both are giving each other a chance to have your say. Well, in that scenario, of course, it is expected from you to provide a feedback once you have received an email from the other person. And that is how you basically respond in your opening sentence to an ongoing conversation as well. Moving ahead, this is the key of developing this link between the interlocutors, you and alongside the other person who is being addressed or the one who is talking to you. So the manner in which you are going to write your opening sentence is going to determine the kind of relationship which will be maintained in the ongoing conversation which would come after the opening sentence. Therefore, this opening sentence has its significance and therefore has to be structured accordingly. If you move ahead, you can see some good examples to have an idea how the opening sentence vary and how these are expected to be structured. Following our phone conversation, I am sending you, and then of course whatsoever has been required, whatsoever has been asked to be provided within that telephonic conversation, first you are giving the reference of that conversation and then you are sending. That is how you basically commence with the talk, or that is how you basically provide the very first, the opening sentence. Another way of starting your email once you have greeted the other individual is attached. Please find documents you requested regarding the subject matter which is being discussed, which is being talked about, which is basically the hot topic for your conversation with the other person. So if there is something which has to be provided in the form of an attachment, now I believe you are well aware of how you basically have to attach something in an email. You have this option, of course, at the bottom, and you can clearly have an idea. We'll show you as well where is this key located, within your interface, once we opened up to see how your window of composing an email appears, over there at the bottom that key was there as well, but to facilitate you, I'm going to show you where is that exact button through which you basically attach the additional documents to be provided to the other person. But for that, of course, you have to provide a reference that there really is an attachment which is being provided to you, and that is how you basically initiate the talk within the opening sentence. In regards to the upcoming pilot program, I've listed below the tasks and deadlines that need to be completed. So the upcoming pilot program is basically the topic, and you are highlighting it, and then you are listing some of the tasks and deadlines, but of course starting from the previous reference. That is how you are realizing the fact you develop a link with the previous conversation and you develop a link with the other person's talk. Another example is, of course, further to our last discussion, I would like to bring to your attention the following issues. So, of course, you were probably asked to provide certain reasons for an event, certain event which has taken place for which you have been asked to provide certain feedback. So this is how you basically, with reference to what has been inquired about, you structure your opening sentence. If there needs to be an agreement, you highlight that agreement first, and then as we agreed, there will not be whatsoever is the decision, but just look at the variety which is possible if you know what basically is the purpose of this opening sentence. So it can vary, and you can structure it based on your comfort, your relationship with the other person who is communicating with you. Based on that relation, based on that link which exists, you can structure or you can pick the kind of opening sentence that you want to use with the other person. Some other examples include, please reconsider our proposal for funding or getting any kind of grant from the funding agency. Of course, now the tone seems a bit different. You realize by looking at the structure that you are, of course, communicating with a higher authority, and that is why you are trying to be more courteous, being more respectful, and starting, of course, from this please, which means you're trying to request with very respect and honor. This is how you basically have to decide whether the other person is someone with whom you can be a bit informal, or you have to maintain this line of distance between the two individuals. So you have to decide what suits better. In response to a job post for marketing director, please find below a brief overview of my skills. I've also attached my CV for your review. So once again, you provide a reference, and with reference to what is has been provided earlier in the conversation, then you are responding, and that is something which makes a difference, and that is how you need to structure your opening sentence. These are some of the examples, but the purpose here is just to give you an idea, not to just exactly copy paste such expressions, but to understand how you can structure your opening sentence. Hopefully it was helpful to give you an idea. Once you have written that opening sentence, you can move ahead to provide, with reference to that opening sentence, some supporting details which are coming ahead. It could be a detailed list, and that you provide in the following manner. In addition to the attached agenda, please click on this link, and then you have provided some link to find additional supporting details. My apologies. In addition to this, to register for the online event, please go to this link or these steps to get yourself registered. So for any kind of detail, that is how you're going to structure once you have already provided the opening sentence. Because right after that opening sentence would come the details with reference to that opening sentence, and these have to be structured accordingly so that the cohesion and the coherence is maintained throughout your electronic mail. Hopefully you're following me and you got the idea. So far, we are moving from top to the end of the email structure, and after the head, we are going through the body, and after the salutation, this opening sentence, and right after the opening sentence, we are going through the supporting details and the manner in which these are to be structured. So of course, you provide these supporting details if these are separate points in separate paragraphs, because these paragraphs would of course give your reader an idea that a new point is being discussed in the next paragraph, and of course the topic sentence itself would become the most important, and that is how its structuring, the choice of words has to be very carefully chosen so that it may not distract your reader. Of course, you have another option which was already discussed in lecture number 17 of making it accessible. And how do you make your document accessible? By the use of variable font size, changing the font size, using the bullets, making things bold, making them in italic. Everything is going to make a difference. You already need to know how and in which situation should you go for the following tools, because they should come after regular interval, and this regular use of these tools is going to help you as well as your reader to have the interaction in the best possible manner. Coming back to our supporting details discussion, we come towards the closing sentence. Now you have provided all the details. The sufficient details have been listed, be it in the form of bullets, numbers, or paragraphs. But the point is, details have been provided. And now you are about to close that talk, close the whole body, coming towards the conclusion. And what to be careful about when it comes to the closing sentence? Well, you need to ensure you maintain that link with the other person so that he or she may remembers what you talked about in your email. Maintenance of a link, maintenance of a relationship is going to lead that other person to provide you a response email. As long as there is a link, and how do you develop that link is something to be understood with the upcoming example. But to talk about the points that you try to achieve with your closing sentences, in addition to maintaining the link, you lead the other person towards some action. So you make a call to the other person to perform an action. That is also something that you achieve as a result of an effective closing sentence. In addition to this, you pave the way for the receiver to provide a feedback in reply of an email. Once again, when there is a link and you are making this request of performing an action by the other individual, of course you will get a feedback, be it in the form of an action or a response email, but of course you are paving the way for the feedback, and that is something to be achieved with your closing sentence as well. And last but not the least, this one is also very much important, that you need to appreciate the other person. Why? Because the other person has spent precious time of all the activities which he or she has to perform. He has taken some time out for reading the email, giving time to all the things which you have written, be it in detail or in short, even reading the subject. They are spending time. And if they are giving their professional time to you, of course, it's always good to end your conversation with a thank you note in a similar way as you thank the other person in a general conversation, a general talk, face-to-face talk. If it's happening in a professional environment, of course, you say a thank you note. Well, in a similar way, you once again have to imagine that face-to-face talk that I talked about in lecture 17. That imaginary person has to be thanked for the time he or she has spent to listen to you in that imaginary environment, or in case of an electronic version, the time spent to read the content which you have written which you have typed and sent in the form of an email. So for that time spent, appreciation along with a thank you note should be there in case of your closing sentence. Some of the examples to realize the manner in which you can thank the other person is, I look forward to your reply. Thank you for the time you have taken to review my candidacy for the position, of course, giving you the context of you being applying for a job, and now after the interview, you are thanking the other person for taking out time to interview and to assess your skills. Moving ahead, please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions or concerns you may have. Can go in any context, but in general, if you have raised a topic, then of course you end it in such a way that in case the other person, if you believe, you anticipate that such topic may be making that other person a bit hesitant to provide a feedback. So of course this statement would motivate and encourage the other person to immediately send you a reply. So of course that is how the structuring of these closing sentences becomes important and have to be used in such a scenario. Thank you in advance for your time. Of course, time is money and time is being sent. That's why with reference to the time spent, you can of course mention it as well. I await receipt of the information we discussed. So you have talked about something in detail and now you are referring to that point as well. Again, in line with the point of call to action. You are making the other person to perform an action or to give you a feedback. So that is how such thank you note goes in line with your call to action as well. So that is how all these functions can be performed in a closing sentence. Please forward me the exact information. Again, a call to action, as a result of which you're going to get a feedback coming back towards you. These are some of the good examples of effective closing sentences. Once you have written the closing sentence, that's not the end of the story. Rather, the other person would really like to know with whom he or she was communicating. Therefore, first thing comes first, and that is you are now signing off. And this sign off is basically done by expressions such as sincerely, yours sincerely, yours truly, thank you, best. There are many emails that I get in which just a simple word best is written. Okay with me. I use quite often best regards. You can simply say thanks, that will also suffice. It all depends on the degree of formality, the relationship which is there between you and your reader. You can pick any one of these based on this relationship, and that is something which you have to determine while choosing the appropriate sign-off. Once sign-off is done, now is the time when you provide your own points of identification, and you basically are the addresser, of course, of your email. So for your addressee's convenience, you're going to provide a signature. This option of signature is also available in which you pick your signature, and in order to simply validate and to authenticate it for your receiver, you simply provide a signature. The significance of a signature is same in this electronic email, similar to, of course, the signature that you have in our practical life, the kind of signature that you do on any document for validity, for confirmation, for your own agreement. The same significance lies in case of your email. To authenticate or to validate or to initiate an action, you always sign or you do your initials in a similar way, just the way you are doing it in a hard paper, on a hard copy. You have to do it in, we call it as a soft copy. So your soft signature are available, can be used in case of your electronic email. In addition to this signature, right afterwards you write your name along with your surname. I'm not just talking about your simple name, because that'll sound a bit informal. You talk about informal communication, you can go for it, but in general professional communication, of course, use your full name. Then talking about your title, you can call it as your designation, what do you do, your profession, your company name, the organization in which you're working. Then of course the email, for making it convenient for the other person to contact you back. Of course, that'll help him to remember how to contact you or how to provide your response. That is the formal way. Then of course you can provide some other means to contact you by phone, fax, and in addition, most of you, or I believe many of you, would have your own web pages as well, used for various purposes. Of course, you can give a link of that web address as well if you consider it necessary. This is how you basically provide the addresser's information at the end, right after your sign off. And once you have provided this detail, you move ahead towards the section of attachment. Attachment, as I discussed in my lecture 17, of course, are the additional documents, a means of sending pictures, documents be they in your Word doc form or be they in PDF form. So it could be any version. You can even send videos, you can send even audios. So you have the space of sending all these different additional components, additional information, if I call it in simple words. You have the option, you can see it in red, this clip which is there at the bottom of your email sending box. You click on it, that will take you straight away towards your computer. Your computer will open up, will simply show it to you where is the file that you really want to add up, be it some picture, some document, some PDF. Just select the location, locate it, select it, open it. It will be directly uploaded within this area. You will see it, the name of the file. It would be visible over here at the bottom in blue color once it has been uploaded, and everything once it's final, once you have proofread everything, if it seems okay, you can of course click on this button of sending, and this will send it directly to over here. The email seems a bit tricky, ECEK. It could be anyone. You can simply write the name of your moderator here, but the purpose here is whenever you have to send something, that is how you do it. If there is any attachment to be attached, so of course you click on this button, upload it, and then send it. This is how you basically go through this process. Hopefully now whenever you have to send an email, I'm sure you're not going to make any mistake, I'm sure, and I will be keeping an eye as well that whenever you send an email, so not the whole email is being written in the subject line. Subject line should have just the subject, and your whole email, the rest of the text, along with the opening sentences, the closing sentences, and all the additional details that you are providing in the middle are coming at the section where your email body is supposed to be written. You have to be careful about it. Over here, some sample examples here for you. Why this example? Because of course you are being prepared for your professional environment. So of course whenever you open up the newspaper or you are getting different advertisements through social networking, you find different ads for the vacancies being announced in different organizations. Of course, after seeing all the criteria, you are provided with an email to be contacted, usually the HR department. So of course, how you're going to contact them, this sample is going to help you out, which is why it was made a part. You can get an idea, but of course you can do structuring and changing it according to your own areas of expertise. So if we look at it, of course, after adding up the exact appropriate email being provided to you for correspondence, your greetings would be, dear hiring manager, I'm over here. I saw your job posting for a graphic designer in the ABC site. Over here we have the opening sentence making the reference of how you came to know about it, you came to know that a vacancy is being announced, and now some of the details which are necessary. In my position as media director for XYZ company, I had several projects for website, and then you're providing the details. Then you are making another important point, which is why it is going towards a next para. I also have extensive experience in both the planning and design of all graphic related projects. I believe I would be an ideal match for the position advertised. And then another important point, I have attached my resume, and below are some sample websites that I have designed for your review. So you are providing your skills and you are using these URL. These are basically links, just the way you find a link at the bottom. In a similar way you find certain links over here as well. You can just simply mention these links over here, so that once the manager clicks on them, it will directly take them towards the site which you have prepared. Now you are moving towards the closing. If relevant, I can send additional samples of work for your review. If I can provide you with any further information, please let me know. That is how you are taking them towards the ending. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your consideration. Looking forward, maintaining the link, and then thank you for the appreciation. Of course, you are thanking them for the time that they have spent on your email, and then you are signing off with your name, address, and all the detail which comes at the end. Very comprehensive, a very good example. Even I liked it when I read it as well, and that's why I thought of making it a part of our today's discussion. You can of course use it, structure it, restructure it based on how you consider it to suit your needs, but that is how you need to divide your sections, and it was done in a perfect way. Scenario number 2, in which you have been called for the interview. You had a good interview. If there was any demonstration, of course you have done it well, and now once you are done with it, that won't be the end of the story. Of course, there is another version of email which turns out to be quite useful, and it would be helpful back in your case as well when you are applying for the job. That is basically once you have gone through the interview. So that's not the end, rather you thank your organization that you're looking forward to join for calling you for the interview, and for that you basically start with addressing your organization's head, who were there part of the interview. It was very nice to speak with you today about the sales position at the ABC organization, and then look at the appreciation which is coming, because the context demands you to provide some appreciation. You appreciate them, they look forward to consider you. This job seems to be an excellent match for my skills and interest, and then you are coming up with some of the points, once again highlighting the skills. In addition to my experience, I will bring to the position assertiveness and the skills, once again highlighting the important aspects. And even once you look at it, you look at the first statement which is there in the first paragraph, then the second one, and the third one, which becomes very much important as you are moving towards the closing. I appreciate the time you took to interview me, and I am interested in working for you. Look forward to hearing from you. Again, developing a link, thanking for the time. You have everything, and which is very important. Especially I would recommend that you will be conversing, of course, with one another, and especially with your teachers. Whenever you have to communicate, you can of course thank them for the time they spent on you, and of course the manner in which they try to facilitate you, and this in return will help you to develop your own email writing skills as well, because you'll remember that is how we were supposed to write, that is how we have learned from the lectures as well. So this is a very open space and opportunity for you to practice and sharpen your email writing skills. So give it a try whenever you have to email keeping in view the following aspects to make it even more interesting, more feasible and helpful for you. Right after this signing off and looking at the details you provide, the next example will be quite context related, because right now we are dealing with report writing, and you can see over here our subject itself is related to report writing. You can of course write the name of your moderator over here, and then I am a student in your report writing class and I am confused about today's homework assignment. I would appreciate if you could explain what you mean by the kind of report which is a bit confusing, or any other thing that you have to highlight. That is how you basically do it. And never forget to thank your teacher for the time they are spending to help you out. And then signing off with your name with space for the signature. You're using your email. Of course, you can mention it alongside the numbers if you want to give them for your correspondence. So that is how I believe the examples turn out to be helpful and useful for you to practice and develop your own email writing skills. Now, just to have an idea, I have this comparison for you regarding the format for an informal email as well as for a formal email, and that will be very helpful for you. These are just minor points to be careful about, and these minor points can make a lot of difference. The knowledge itself will be very helpful. In the next slide, basically we're going to look at the formal email format, but we should of course start from the informal and then see how it is different from the formal. If you look at the beginning, of course, it is telling you about the greetings, the different options which are there to greet your friend or anyone in an informal tone. So of course you can write the first name in journal with a comma. You can write, of course, dear to greet them with courtesy, dear Adam with comma, dear Mr. Turner, dear Mr. Turner without comma. With comma, without comma, you have the option. That's why all the options are written parallel to one another. You can pick any one of them and these will be considered acceptable in case of your informal email. Over here you are like addressing the other person by their name or by saying dear Adam, dear Mr. Turner. So even if you imagine that you are calling someone in a similar way who is there in front of you, they'll turn at you and they'll be expecting you're about to say something. So in such a scenario, you place a comma, and that's why the comma is there. This is also a very important point to be noted here, that if you are calling someone by their name, it will be very informal, whereas saying dear would make it informal but a bit less. In case of using these expressions such as hi or hello, you have options. For example, of your option of using hi or hello, you have two options. In case of either a hi or hello, you can use this comma. It will be okay with both of these. Whereas in case of your hi and then the name coming, it will be considered acceptable and better if you just place a full stop after the name. I'm talking about informal, never forget the point. We are saying that if you have to use hi, in case of hi, you have to use comma, and right after the comma and the name, you're going to place this full stop. Whereas in case of your hi and hello, you have to place comma after hi and hello both. This is the point to be remembered here. You have a choice that a comma should come after hi or hello. And this one is telling you that right after the name, your full stop should be placed immediately. These points should be kept in mind. They seem a bit confusing, but these are very simple and would help you, especially writing the informal email. Just to give you a quick review, hi and hello, you have to place a comma. Then you're going to write the name and then place a full stop. Making it more informal, of course, you can just write the name, or to make it a bit more courteous, you can place the word dear before the name. That is how you can write an informal email. Moving ahead towards the formal format of writing an email, You might haven't seen this expression, but this is the one which is accepted. The use of colon right after the person with whom you are dealing in a professional way, this formal communication. So over here the point is written for you that no need to use hi or hello, especially in case of your formal communication. Keep it restricted to dear for courtesy and respect. No punctuation after dear, especially when you are writing the name of that person with whom you're communicating afterwards. If that name is there, then with convention, it is generally accepted to write or to use this punctuation mark of colon right after the name ends without any space. So over here you can see dear Professor Kim and then a colon is there. But with the passage of time now it is also generally accepted, and which is why we don't see it quite often. But to tell you, in journal, colon is acceptable, and if you use it, there is nothing wrong with it, because this is the general convention to use it. Then of course you need to capitalize the names, not the whole name of course, because that would seem like shouting. Purpose here is that when you are writing the name of the person, the first one should be an uppercase letter of that name. Hopefully I'm not missing any point. Over here once again you can see, in case of colon, no space between the word before and the colon. Dear Mr. Turner, the point which I basically mentioned. Then coming towards your signing off, you've written sincerely. After sincerely you have to place a comma, as you can see over here. In case of another medium or mode of signing off, you basically say yours truly, but over here it's written here in the box for you as well that notice the second word is not capitalized and need not to be capitalized. Single word, sincerely, of course, you're writing a word starting from the new line will be capitalized. But over here, this word shouldn't be in case you're using yours truly. No commas between titles and the end of a signature line if possible in case of your formal email. Do not mix them up. Just summing it all up, in case of your informal, hi, hello is okay, placing a comma and then the name and then the full stop. Or even if you drop the full stop, it's okay. Talking about the formal one, basic difference is that right after that name of the person, you place a colon. If you don't want to, now it's also accepted. And then in case of sincerely, placing a comma right after the signing off. In case of using two words for signing off, yours truly, then truly will have the smaller case letter. That will be remembered and that should be practiced, and that is how you'll become perfect in your email writing. Spamming and flaming. These are also very good concepts to be remembered and should be kept in mind, because spam emails are something which are now generally managed by the email service providing websites. If I talk about Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmails, they have this separate folder, that separate section which is visible within your interface as well. It has the heading of spam. If you click on it, all the emails which are considered to be fake, they are directly transferred in that spam email folder, because these are fake, these are auto-generated, and these are basically, why am I calling it fake? Because they are abusive. They want to take your money, of course, by generating such a structure that you have won something, and if you click on that button, provide your account details, and you're going to win something even bigger. And if you fall for the trap, of course, you can lose a big bunch of amount. That can be a terrible loss. In order to avoid such thing from happening, such email service providers already maintain this folder whenever they feel like something is being auto-generated, being sent to different receivers of email, and the same pattern with the same use of language. They consider it to be spam and they maintain it in a separate folder, and that is why you do not see such email to be coming within your inbox. They directly go into the spam folder. But this practice itself, of course, is illegitimate illegal, punishable, of course, but at your end it has to be avoided as well, because the manner in which you can avoid it is that you basically use your email very carefully, especially when you have to use it for buying something or for shopping. Of course, we have online markets where sometimes it becomes necessary for providing the email for communication. So if you are making it like an open access email, now you have placed it in an online market, of course it can create a lot of trouble, because now it being in an open access can be taken by that spammer. Once they will buy that email, they, by using your email ID, they'll be sending emails to so many others, and God knows what they are sending. You don't have any idea, you won't have any idea what is being sent on your behalf. So in order to avoid such spam, be careful while sending emails to others, while sending emails or providing emails on different forums, online markets, such websites. Whereas in case of your own interface where you're receiving such auto-generated emails, better to just avoid them, just delete them. We'll have some details of those keys to avoid these spamming. Why flaming? Flaming is also coming because it's also very much related to this, emotional fight which happens in this electronic field, in which you and the other person get emotional and have this terrible exchange of words. Why am I calling it terrible? Because it involves emotion, and that's how it becomes a bit, something not much worth reading. That's why it has to be avoided, and some of the detail is coming in the upcoming slides. But talking about spamming and flaming together, both are types of email abuse. Understanding becomes important, which is why I have given you a detailed talk about it. And then if I talk about the point which is coming ahead, of course you are new to the internet. This is the point to be remembered. You won't see spam immediately, but gradually with the passage of time, you have started doing the interaction in different forums with different people. Of course, then there is a bigger chance of you getting spam email, but of course you have to avoid them. And how, what do you know if you find you're getting spam? There are several things you can do. How to avoid them, of course. Of course, you can use the delete key. First and foremost thing is that they are already being placed in another separate folder. No need to open it, because that is kept at a side. Still, if you want to see how these are, structured, of course you can look into it and then press the delete button. Then you can use the filter and folders, or even shareware packages to help you direct your spam into one folder. As I already mentioned, they are being kept aside at a separate folder, but of course the filters are also there within these email service providing websites to maintain this filter, keeping genuine and authentic email at one side, of course within your inbox, whereas such auto-generated fake emails at another site. Preventing spam, learn more about the various ways. Of course, just the search engine of Google is there, which you can use to find all the keys, all those strategies through which you can get even more knowledge, more understanding regarding these spams. And once you know more about these spams, you will know how to avoid them as well. So with this, we can move towards flaming. What basically flaming is, flame itself, is very hot. So if the conversation itself becomes, regarding a hot topic, even it becomes the use of abusive language or excessive use of such words which can, humiliate. It is totally going opposite to the sea of courtesy and consideration. So if that is the case, then of course this is something that we call as flaming. Email or news group message in which the writer attacks the other person with uninhibited hostility. Flame war is an exchange of flames between two or more participants. So it becomes contagious, as the flame itself that you always see is, causing devastation in different forests, because it simply spreads within minutes, within hours, taking over the whole place. In a similar way, such flaming, if happening in this electronic medium, can cause trouble as well. So emotions have a way of generating more emotions, which happens over here, but it's a good idea to wait for a while before responding to an email that looks like a flame. You may have misinterpreted to the original email, but the best way to stop a flame war is not to respond. No response will simply put it directly towards an end. Now we are in a position to summarize and to simply look at all those email etiquettes that we can also consider as the conventions to be followed based on the knowledge, of course, that we have gained right from the beginning, starting from the basics, formatting, structuring, and of course the points to consider while writing an email by looking at all the examples and studying them in detail. Some conventions, some of the things which should be done and some of the points which shouldn't be done, the do's and don'ts. So of course we're going to start from all the do's for writing an effective email to conclude how we can simply write it effectively. Of course, the first point comes first. The focus should be there on using the subject line to capture your reader's attention. That should be the focus, because that is going to make the ultimate difference. Subject is clear, it has everything, it jumps to the point, it mentions what's coming ahead, you are successful. Put the key point of your message up front and restrict the message to one topic whenever possible, because that restriction will be easy for your reader to grasp and understand. If you are making one point at a time, that'll be okay. If there is a situation in which you have to mention multiple points, it's better because it's not that cost effective. You raise one point, you write it in the form of an email, it's sent, done. Now you have some of the other points as well, 2, 3, 4 for example. Of course you can raise point number 2 in a separate email. It will have its own separate subject and it will be addressed separately. It will be read after point number 1, and that will be helpful for the reader as well as for you. Therefore, it's always better to restrict message to one topic wherever possible. And keeping the key point up front means the most important thing should come first and then the less important and least important. If that is the order, you'll have maximum focus of your reader. Make it easy for the reader to reply yes or no or give a short answer. The more easier it is for your reader, the easier it would be for you to have this correspondence and to maintain and of course initiate a course of action that you really want to do. If there is a question for which there is a yes no reply, it would be of course answered immediately. But if you are asking for an open-ended question and an open-ended answer, of course that person has to critically analyze the situation and then provide you with an answer. This subjectivity of course would ask for some analysis. Analysis of course takes time, you are well aware of it. Therefore, although a possibility is that you will receive the email, but that will take time. But if you are asking such a question for which of course you are getting the answer immediately, it should be structured in such a way that either it should be a yes or a no. Making use of white spaces and legible font. Of course, how can you simply use the white spaces? Of course, white spaces are used to organize and order your content in the right way. White spaces are not just there between words. White spaces are also there between one line and the other line. White spaces are also there between one paragraph and the other paragraph. White spaces are there between bullets. Therefore, this is the way the writer, or I would say over here, this content is trying to convey the meaning to you that white spaces shouldn't go in vain. They should be ordered in such a way, they should be utilized in such a way that you are using all the other techniques which are surrounded by the white space. That is basically the point. And of course, in addition to this, a font which is legible. Of course, you have to personalize by using conversational tone as well. And you basically, of course, we have talked about in lecture number 17 as well, that you try to make your tone conversational, and you want this talk to be more interactive in nature, in which basically the interlocutors are both involved in the meaning making process. So of course, for that you need to make it conversational in nature, and that is only possible if you are using contractions and pronouns. If you just give me a second, I need to use and open up this highlighter for you, because I want to highlight these points over here. The contraction and pronouns are very much important to make it, of course, conversational, because contraction are, of course, we are doing this. If I say we're doing this, where are you going, where are you going, you are performing good, you're performing good. These minor contractions are, of course, lessening the space and, of course, building up a relationship of a conversational tone which is there between two persons or two individuals talking. So that's how, this is basically the meaning that you need to personalize with the other person with whom you are conversing. Of course, this is courtesy, respecting common grammar and spelling conventions. If you are using grammar perfectly without making any error, of course you are helping the other person follow you and understand your point. But if you are making the errors, it will initially have such a bad impression that the other person won't be interested to go into the detail. And that is why you need to make sure that you proofread before sending the email to the other person. That's how you respect common grammar and spelling conventions. That's how you proofread your message before sending it, and then make yourself good online, because your email can be forwarded to anyone or everyone else in the company or anywhere. The point here is that your email, especially being part of an organization, will not just stay restricted to a single individual to whom you are sending. Rather, of course, if it has a good point, it will be forwarded. It will be disseminated among the others as well to get the same advantage. Of course, they all would see who is the actual sender. And of course, if they identify you, and in such a case in which you are not using you're not picking up the right choice of words at the right time, of course it will affect your overall that electronic personality. So therefore, make sure you proofread, and with this proofreading you have a good impression in the mind of everyone who is receiving your email. Send messages only to people who need to read them. Respect other people's time and don't forward junk email to them. So of course, the point here in short is that you need to use this option of CC and BCC that we have studied in previous lecture sparingly when it's really much needed. Even if you have to send a reply, so you have this option of reply all, and you have to be very careful not to select reply all rather than reply, because in case you just want to reply to a single person, if you click on reply all, every individual which is there in carbon copy is going to receive your email as well, and afterwards you will say, oops. Once it's sent, will not be reverted back. You only have the time when you haven't pressed this button of send. Even if you just take out that lead of yours, if it's a Wi-Fi, if you switch it off, once it's sent, it will be received. There is nothing you can do about it. Therefore, better to be careful to whom it should be sent and to whom it should be replied. These are the points. Keep your message short and clear. Remember that screen shows only about half of what you see on hard copy. So this was the point that I mentioned, that nowadays we have the smartphone in the palm of our hand, and we know what's the size of the screen, and if there is too much detail, then they have to just drag it to see what's coming ahead. So rather making them drag and scroll down to see what is the detail, why not simply keep it short and simple and clear? They'll read it, they'll reply, they'll give you an immediate response. So this is the basic do, which is going to give you a thumbs up. If it's long, give a summary at the start, because just think of the context that we have talked about in communication, that most of the people are interested at the summary, just the way we have this executive summary in a report. So you can provide such summary at the start. They'll be interested, they'll look at it. If it's really worth reading, they'll go into the detail as well. Scan your resume for viruses before you attach it to your email. Nowadays, it is something which your email service provider do, but earlier it used to be done by yourself as well. But now, of course, you have this ability of uploading something and it gets scanned for viruses and then gets uploaded. And even if you download something online, of course, it gets scanned first for viruses and then you download it. And if there is a chance of a virus, of course, you are warned earlier that there is a probability there may be a virus. But still, if you want to continue, then you can click on download it, you'll get it downloaded. And the rest of what happens to your system, you're responsible for it. Think about the message your email address sends. Keep your address simple and avoid unprofessional names such as this. No need to say it, it's clearly much visible, so no need to use such expressions which may be affecting the honor, dignity, and respect of the other individual. Therefore, you need to avoid such expressions. Treat your email as if you were writing a professional cover or thank you letter on paper. So, of course, the point here is you just have made it digital. Now it's more like an electronic version, but the point remains that make it professional. Keep it in a professional tone like a cover or a thank you letter, and that is how you're going to write an effective email. What not to do and what to avoid basically when we talk about a successful email or email conventions and the etiquettes. Well, don't use email if the message needs to be private and secure. Maybe the company has a policy on this. For example, everything being open. If you really want to keep it private and secure, use it, use some other means. Otherwise, everything will be open as well based on the policy that your company has. So you can simply avoid it in such a scenario. Don't send an email you wouldn't want anyone else to read because it's too easy to forward. That is also a point to be remembered. Don't forward a message without a brief comment why you are forwarding. This is also a general practice. Happens at times that you receiving an email, you consider it to be forwarded to another person. So you just simply click on the button of forward and it goes ahead. Better to write something in the body of the text. Why being forwarded? Why is it being forwarded? For some course of action that has to be performed or for information. Something has to be mentioned. Nothing should go empty. The boxes have been provided for filling up, and that's why it has to be filled up with some text. Don't leave subject line blank. This is very important. That's why don't. Point here is don't leave subject line either blank, and I have a don't for you. Don't even fill it up with the whole email. No. Email should come afterwards. Subject should have the subject itself, and it will be self-explanatory. So this is the point to be remembered. Don't type your message in capitals, because what will it sound like? It will be considered as you're shouting, because this is according to the convention. The tradition is set in such a way that if you are writing something, even if you look at the word shouting, so writing any word, even if I write what are you doing in this capital way, the other person conventionally would take it as you are trying to be angry, you're trying to be furious, you're trying to be humiliating, or trying to be angry. Such different meanings by just capitalizing. So just capitalize, use uppercase where needed. For example, writing the names of the company. Then of course the first letter becomes capital, not talking about the whole word. Don't overrun emails with smiley faces or other emoticons, meaning don't overrun. Of course, you can use where considered necessary, where there is a space of expressing your emotions. That's why you have the emoticons. The option has been enabled for this purpose, but don't overrun, as I also get the emails of certain students in which they have used so many emoticons, and in a big line they have just emoticons of crying, why less marks, sir, sometimes smileys coming, Eid Mubarak, sir, and then a line of emoticons, of smiling emoticons, I would say. Well, if it depends on basically the degree of formality. If the relationship between student and teacher is of such manner that they consider it to be useful, okay, if the moderator, the teacher doesn't mind, I have no issue. But if you consider that professor that he may or she may mind such expression, then of course you need to avoid and keep it formal. Don't let emotions or offensive language detract you from your message. Of course, that is also very important. Don't just rely on email, because email can be lost. Follow-ups are also important. Of course, these are telephone and regular mail. So of course, everything has their significance. Use or learn to use everything together. Everything has its place. Don't type your entire message in lowercase. That is also something to be avoided, because the example is coming ahead for you to understand. In addition to these use of internet acronyms, OMG, WTH, I mean internet, of course, meaning you have the modes of chatting, we have social networking in which you use such expressions. So in that way it's okay, but we are talking about the professional email. So such abbreviations, such acronyms are not okay. So this is how, if you look at all lowercase, I'll meet you in an hour, not looking nice. And even in case of the capital uppercase, it becomes like shouting. So it has to be avoided. Don't use slang, OMG George is such and whatever is ahead. Don't use idioms. Of course, idioms are also not comprehensible for everyone. Of course, you will feel like you are going for big language, flowery words, rhetorical use of words, but not everyone has the same level of comprehension. So of course, they will be asking for what do you mean by it, or they will be searching, be copy pasting that on Google to see what is the meaning of this idiom, while making your comprehension of email more lengthy and more time consuming. Don't write statements that speak for the entire organization unless permission from your supervisor has been given. Talk about yourself. Talk on behalf of yourself. If it's permitted to you, then on behalf of the company or the organization, you can go for it. Otherwise, just it's a reflection of your own personality, email or electronic personality. That's how you can relate and remember it as well. Now, when it comes to vocabulary, I have a comparison here for you that you can do with respect to the degree of politeness over here in this slide. You have these expressions, and I have an alternative as well for you of the less polite expressions, or we can say less formal expressions. Thank you and thanks. I would like to apologize for, of course, you will be using such expressions in an environment in which you are talking to an individual in a professional environment, a boss or an immediate boss, whereas these can of course be used for your own friends for a talk or conversation. That is basically the difference. You talk about some useful expressions for permission. So in case of the upper one, may I come in, is considered more formal. Can I come in is considered to be less formal. But there is a story to it as well that I would like to mention here. I call it as a story because it's directly related to the meaning of these two words, which creates a lot of confusion. It used to make a lot of confusion back in my own mind, sometimes considering these two to be the alternative of one another, synonymous, having the same meaning. Sometimes it used to feel like maybe we are using may in one situation and can in another. Of course, both are modal auxiliary, but they have their own purposes. I have this some data collected here for you that I would like to mention regarding the history of these expressions. If I start from the word may, so this may of course existed in the Old English language, and the meaning of this may can be understood from this expression of might is right. This may and might had this meaning of strength, referring back to 8th century. So now we can say that the past meaning or the earlier meaning of this expression of may was related to the ability of doing something. In the meanwhile, a new expression came, and that was can. Now this can, earlier meaning was to know something, gradually flourished to become to know how to do something, and back in 1300 it evolved to become to have the ability to do something. Now this ability to do something has directly related it with may, the meaning of may, which was of course strength and ability. May and can started to create this confusion and were considered to be synonymous, as I had in mind as well. But the issue was resolved in the year 1926 with this fictional student-teacher exchange which happened in Charles Lurie's How to Say It, Helpful Hints on English Language, like a work in which this fictional interaction takes place between student and a teacher, and the teacher of course guides the student that in case of your may is used basically for permission, for a possibility whether this thing is possible, whereas can is used to check the ability. Can becomes more related with the ability, whereas may is used for the permission, and these are the meanings which are also accepted and appreciated when these expressions are used to convey this meaning. Therefore, this interpretation should be kept in mind as well, in addition to the use of these expressions as formal and informal. And in addition to this, I would say for your request, would you mind if I leave early becomes formal, whereas I am leaving early, you don't mind, do you, becomes a bit less formal. You want to suggest something or invite someone, would you like to go outside, is more courteous, or why don't we go outside is a place where you're trying to be compelling, motivating, or being authoritative. So a little change in the use of words can have such a big difference. And with this, I would like to conclude here that we have successfully completed the structure of an email. We have talked about the do's and don'ts, the email etiquettes, and we have also looked at the end at some of the vocabulary expressions, useful expression, and the history of this may and can. Hopefully you're going to remember it as well, and you would use may for permission and can to see whether this thing can be done based on the strength, the might, and of course the ability. Can is for ability, may is for permission. And with that, I would like to end my today's lecture. In the upcoming one, we're going to start with another separate form of writing. Till then, take good care of yourself. Goodbye and Assalamu alaikum from my side. Thank you.